One of the most important experiences that we can all have is the experience of using the concept of leverage. Now, many people are aware of leverage. We know about the leverage of other people's money, other people's time, other people's knowledge. And one of the most important concepts of leverage that most people don't embrace is the concept of the leverage of other people's experiences. And that is what I want to talk to you today about. The concept of OPE, as I like to call it, other people's experiences, is so profound and is so powerful that if you look through history and if you look at the lives of people who've achieved a level of success that we admire, but a level of success that also exceeds what the average person can even dream of, we notice almost a common denominator in each of those respective lives. That common denominator is the fact that they were an apprentice to a master. Now, I've just said something that I think for those of you who perhaps are passionate about success and passionate about living a beautiful, fulfilled, exceptional life, I hope that has probably struck a chord in you. The concept of being an apprentice is something that in today's generation, my generation, we shun. We see it as a sign of weakness that we have to go and learn from someone else. And the concept of mentorship and mentoring and discipleship, the concept of servanthood, the concept of studying under someone else is so difficult for my younger generation and my generation to understand and appreciate. But let me paint it to you in a simple way. I'll take you back in time. So many years ago, I sat down and I was going through a very challenging experience, very difficult time. And one cold evening, it was a winter evening, I was in pain, emotional pain, physical pain, and my spirit was broken. And I sat there in my living room and I picked out a book. I had a lot of thoughts going through my mind. I was in a bad place, mentally and psychologically. I was in a bad place. And I had so many thoughts going through my mind, and I reached out and I picked up a book and I started to read. I wasn't reading the book because I was looking for insight or inspiration or education. I reached out and I started to read because I was trying to distract myself. The thoughts I had weren't very healthy. They weren't very positive. So I needed something to distract me. And as I started to read, after a short while, I realized that I had tears running down my eyes, uncontrollably. Now, this was very strange. This was unusual. This was unexpected. And I realized that in that instant, that the reason I had tears running down my eyes, my face, was because something in the book resonated deep within me. There was a feeling of happiness and excitement and joy and peace. I had found answers to my questions because over a period of so many years, I had been asking myself questions, but I couldn't find the answers. I'd been trying to solve these problems that I had my own way. And for the first time, whilst reading, the author had painted very beautifully, using words, their experiences, their setbacks, their challenges, their obstacles they went through. But more importantly, they were so kind in providing how they overcame each of those challenges and how they became victorious and how they created success from what seemed to have been a failed experience. And so for the first time, I had answers. And so that feeling was a feeling of being overwhelmed with joy. Finally, I had found it. The emotion of excitement was somewhat balanced almost instantaneously with the emotion of pain and sadness and hurts and regrets, because I noticed that at the same time, whilst I was feeling euphoric, that I started to feel a little bit down and sad. Now, here was the reason. It dawned on me that the reason I had this opposite emotion of sadness was because I suddenly realized that the book I was holding in my hand and I was reading, I had bought that book so many years ago, and that book had been sitting on my shelf all these years, gathering dust. I had not picked up that book to read it. And so it came in a way of regret, because I realized that my ignorance was a choice, but it came with a very big price tag. But I could have avoided all this pain and suffering. I could have avoided a lot of the challenges that I've gone through had I chosen to invest in my personal education, had I chosen to learn from someone else's experience. Now, this is what is amazing. In a few minutes, I had learned what took the author decades to learn. That, my friend, is the concept of the leverage of other people's experiences. You can pick a book, and in 4 hours you can study and you can learn what took someone 40 or 50 years. And so studying under the guidance and direction of other people who have created success or who have experienced pain and failure is important. The concept of learning from other people who know more than you do is important. A lot of us focus on success. I have no objections to success. I believe success is our birthright. Anything short of success is a sign that we've made wrong decisions. But I want us to try and focus a little bit more on what I call mastery. Mastery is simply you being the best that you can be. Mastery is you becoming the greatest that you can be. It's not about comparing yourself with someone else. It's not about accumulation. It's not about trying to get. It's about trying to become. Mastery is about saying, what is my true potential? And how can I improve my potential and let this potential flourish? And how can I let this potential come forth? Now, one of the ways that happens is through the concept of learning from what I call mentors. Now, there are two ways you can learn in life. You can learn from your experiences. Usually, those are mistakes. Because you see, success is a very poor teacher. You don't really learn from success. You learn from mistakes and feedback and failure. On the assumption that obviously that you learn, you have some level of reflection, introspection, you retain and get the feedback, and you course correct. But two ways of learning. You can learn from your mistakes, or you can learn from mentors. Another way of saying that is you can learn from your own experiences alone, or you can be wise and choose to combine your learning personal experiences with other people's experiences through mentors, by modeling other successful people, by studying, how they think, by studying their habits, by studying their character, by learning the critical skills they have, by learning their behaviors, and then modeling yourself through action what they do. And here is the point. Success leaves behind clues. If someone makes a beautiful recipe as a meal, in making that meal, they've gone through specific instructions, guidelines. If you were to follow the same instructions using the same ingredients, you can create the same or something similar to that dish. The reason you can do that is because you've simply used the recipe and the formula. But many of us, unfortunately, believe that we can go through life, and I'm often baffled at this, that we can go through life and make the most important decisions of our lifetime, but we refuse to consult other people. We refuse to call other people into our decision-making process. We even refuse to learn from the mistakes of others. I often say that there are two ways of learning from other people. You can learn from their successes, but I'm much more interested in learning from their failures. Now, the reason I say that is because I mentioned earlier on that success is a poor teacher. If I study what someone has done well, I can replicate it. But this is what most people forget. And this is what I didn't understand at a very young age. It's not so much about what you should do. You must pay attention, and even greater attention, to what you should not do. You can get the best recipe, prepare in the right way. If at the last minute you put the wrong or a wrong ingredient, the entire meal changes. And that's because you've changed what we'll call the component part of what should have been a beautiful dish. So it's as important to learn what not to do as it is what to do. And so I love to learn from other people's setbacks and failures and mistakes. I like to learn from people who have taken the time to reflect, and they can tell you what they should have done differently. But also I like to learn from people who never reflected, because it shows me a spectrum. It shows me what can happen when you ignore life's instructions, but also it shows you what could happen when you course correct and try to make amends. So learning from other people and learning from mentors, learning from people who are deserving of you learning from them, whether they've been successful or whether they haven't, I think is very important. I think apprenticeship should be a must for anyone who really wants to be successful. Now, let me qualify that statement, because for so many people, the same mistakes will be made as I did. I grew up under the loving, caring, nurturing guidance of an amazing father, remarkable man, a remarkable mother, very beautiful woman. Both of them loved me and loved my brothers, and we loved them back in return. The mistake I made, and the mistake I see most people make, is assume that if you're not taught what you should know at home, then perhaps it's not as important. So we have this closed mindset that there are two ways we're going to learn. We're going to learn academically. So if they teach you in school, then it's important. But also we're going to learn from osmosis, from our parents, that if it's important, our parents will teach us. And that is fundamentally flawed. And the reason is because when you take into account a father or mother who gets up every day, labors hard, comes back home with so much responsibility, with fatigue, they can only give you so much. And they can only give you so much because, you see, one of life's laws is that you can only give what you have. You can never give what you do not have. And so whatever knowledge you're learning from those who have raised you, your parents, your guardians, your environment, your friends, is based on what they have. The most important key to life is to ask yourself, where am I trying to get to? In other words, what is my desired destination? And then you ask yourself, what skills, what talents, what knowledge, what information, what resources, who can I go to acquire all of those in order that I may reach my desired destination? And so for so many people, we learn from our parents, and I learned a lot from my parents. My foundation in life is as strong, I like to use the word strong, as it is because of the learning that I obtained from my parents. But there were so many other areas that I didn't learn, they couldn't give me. Not because they were being selfish. No, just simply because there were limitations to their time. There were limitations in their level of wisdom and knowledge. There were limitations also in my ability to receive and understand at that particular age or time in my life. The way to success is to see yourself as a learner. And that simply means you learn as much as you can. I love what someone once said. He said, every person that I meet is superior to me in some way, in that I can learn from him or her. And that's powerful. The point I'm making is this. You must always look at life as your teacher. You must always then look at people as instructors in life. Some people you can look at and then you reverse engineer how they live. By looking at them, you can say, I would never want to be like you. Well, reverse engineer it. If you reverse engineer, you can learn something. But many of us go through life with a closed mindset, with this arrogance that if my parents didn't teach me, if the school didn't teach me, then perhaps it's not as important as it should be, which is flawed. And that's the reason why most people's dreams are not fulfilled. And that's the reason why most people go through pain. And that's the reason why most people go through a lot of setbacks in life. Why? Because Hosea 4:6 says something that I love. It says, my people perish. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Now that's powerful. It says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Now, this is what's interesting. Ignorance is a choice. You see, I believe that there are no victims in life. We're all volunteers. We play a part. We uniquely are the only life form that has been given the ability to choose our world. We can create it with our imagination. We can make decisions through the power of the will, using free will and the power of choice. And then we can choose to pursue our dreams and goals by combining our higher faculties of focus, combining our higher faculties of, inspiration, intuition, combining higher faculties of memory, so we can choose whatever future we want to create. But very few do. And part of the reason is because we have rejected knowledge. And so the wisest person who ever lived said that wisdom stands on the road or the streets and it's beckoning on you, calling you and saying, come to me so that I might guide you. In the same way, every day you wake up in the morning, I can promise you of one thing. There's something you can learn. There's something you can learn. And I like to ask people to ask themselves this question. Every day, ask yourself this question. Have I lived? Have I loved? Did I listen? Did I learn? And most important, did I laugh? Have I loved? Did I listen? Did I learn? Did I live? And did I laugh? And so here is my hope and my wish for you. I wish for you success. I wish for you good health, happiness, joy, prosperity, good fortune. I wish for you wealth. I wish for you everything that comes with the good life. But also I wish for you more than anything wisdom. I wish for you that you have the passion and you have the discipline and the willingness to become a student, to decide to become an apprentice. I live every day with an expectation. And that expectation is that I must learn something new. Because every day that I don't learn, I know that I'm either growing or disintegrating. Nothing stays the same. And so every day I want to learn. Now, knowledge is becoming obsolete at a very fast pace. Knowledge is getting reproduced, recreated, made redundant much faster than we anticipated. Whatever knowledge you have now, I know it will vary depending on the subject area you choose, but in about 18 months, that knowledge would have to be changed and updated. So if you're holding on to the knowledge and information you gained 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm afraid you're going to be left behind. Alvin Toffler has a quote that goes, "In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, and the learned will be fully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." And what he was trying to say from that statement is this, that the one constant in life is change. But only those who are willing to keep learning will be able to reap the fruits and the benefits of what the world has to offer. There's no such thing as an educated person. You're either educating yourself every day or you're falling behind. And by education, I'm not talking about the traditional way. Now, perhaps this is a good time for me to segue and talk about education and how it relates to apprenticeship and mentorship. Traditionally, we were trained that there are two ways to the education, or paths to the education system: formal education and professional education. I like to call it academic education and professional education. But that in itself is not incorrect. That assumption is not incorrect, it's just incomplete. Every equation has parts. If you alter the component parts of the equation, you alter the outcome. So for example, H2O is a compound obtained by an equation. That equation is you have 2 parts of hydrogen and you mix it with 1 part of oxygen. Mix it in that proportion, you have H2O. It's a colorless and an odorless compound. We call it water. I can drink it and it will nourish me. Now, if I change the component parts, for example, if I choose to mix 2 parts of hydrogen with 2 parts of oxygen, I have changed the equation. I've created a new compound called H2O2. We call it hydrogen peroxide. It's colorless, it's odorless, just like water. But if I drink it, it will poison me, it will kill me. The point I'm making is this: the education equation that we have or have believed to be complete for so long is incomplete. We look at 2 basic strands, but there are more than 2. I like to look at it as 4 areas, and you can mix this up as much as you want, and you can break this down as much as you want. The first is academic education. You have to learn how to read and write. That's important. The second I mentioned before is professional education. Depending on the field you choose to go into, if you want to become a doctor, a scientist, if you want to become a neurosurgeon, if you want to become an accountant, if you want to be an architect, an engineer, you need professional education. You need to develop those skills and learn those tools and learn those knowledge that you need to succeed. But there's an area that we often miss out, and I call that personal development. And here we talk about what I believe is the most important part of life. And that is, this focuses on various key areas. One of them is you learn about yourself, about the mind, about the higher faculties that you have, how to use your imagination, how to use your intuition, how to use your memory, how to use your will to focus. You learn how to use perception. You learn about the higher faculties of your mind. You learn about self. You learn about how to have a positive attitude, about courage. You learn about success. You learn about how to find your passion and your purpose. Now, all of these fall under what I call personal development. We call it the soft skills. You're learning skills that develop your character so you become the best that you can be. The fourth path is what I call financial education. And that is where you learn beyond what you're taught in school. You learn about personal finance. You learn the art of investing and combine that with the science of wealth creation, multiplication, protection, and sharing. That is an art and a science combined. And so the key to successful learning is having these 4 parts of the equation present. Mix it together in the right proportion, you have a beautiful outcome, a beautiful life. So the purpose of being an apprentice, the purpose of choosing to learn under someone else, the purpose of going for apprenticeship, servanthood, is so that you can learn from other people all of these other strands and areas of life that you may not have had the opportunity to learn whilst on the academic route or the professional route or even back at home. You see, the problem is within the area of personal development and financial education, we often leave that to our respective homes. So we believe that we'll learn that from home or we'll learn it from school. But Napoleon Hill said something that I thought was fascinating. He says that there are 2 types of education. The education you need that teaches you how to read and write, and also the education that teaches you what you do not know, but informs you as to where you can go and find that knowledge. So choosing to be a mentee, choosing to be a protege, choosing mastery requires that you're going to be disciplined in your thinking, and you're going to say that I'm going to learn from others, those who are qualified to teach me, those who are worthy of learning from, but also I'm going to learn from those who haven't succeeded so that I can reverse engineer what they did wrong so that I don't make the same mistakes. Now, in doing that, what you find is that you're now having a balanced equation when it comes to education and learning, and therefore you have the ability to then apply the principles of life. And you have the ability to now say with confidence that life is not a matter of chance, and that your destiny is not a matter of chance, but it's of choices, because you will be able to make the decisions in the respective areas of life that are necessary and that need to be made, but you will also make them intelligently. So I'll go back to the story that I shared earlier on about myself. My pain, my setbacks, my frustration over that period of time when I was struggling was a choice. The choice was ignorance. I refused to learn. It had nothing to do with my parents. It had nothing to do with my environment. It had everything to do with the choices I made. I was pursuing success, but I had not focused on mastery. There's what I call a 3-strand process to having anything you want. The first is be, do, and have. Most people have this in reverse. Most people think about, what do I want to have? And then they think about, what do I need to do? And they end at that point. Many people leave out, who do I have to become? But the equation has to be in the opposite way. It has to be, who do I have to be in order to do what I need to do so that I can have what I need to have? And mastery focuses on who you have to become. Success, in many cases, focuses on what you want to have and what you have to do. If you focus on mastery and you focus on being the best apprentice you can be, I can promise you this, that you will meet with success in uncommon hours. Now, this is the reason why Napoleon Hill says that if you think that hard work leads to success, you should perish the thought. He said, hard work doesn't create success. That success comes when it comes through definite demands based on definite principles, based on sound understanding of the laws of life and nature, and not by chance or luck or even hard work. All those definite principles come only when you've learned from the right people or from the right place. The laws of life come when you've learned, and therefore you're able to then use all the resources that you've acquired to create what you want. I'll leave this with you as I end. Many people might say, I have a passion, I want to learn. I know the people who I want to be my mentors, but I can't get through to them. And here is my suggestion. Start where you are and start with what you have. You can learn from books. You can learn from people if you have a relationship with them. You can learn from audio cassettes. You can learn by audio learning. You can learn from people who really become your mentors, but you've never met them. Now, some of the best mentors that I've had are no longer alive, but they've left so much great stuff in terms of information through books, through recorded material, through audio material. So I can study their work. I can glean into how they perhaps came to certain conclusions. I can look at their lives, and with the information they've left behind, I can learn. So mastery doesn't necessarily mean that you must go on become an apprentice under someone who is alive. If you can, that's wonderful, because you can ask direct questions. But don't let that stop you. And more than anything, never assume that the source of knowledge that you have is sufficient. Remember what I said at the start. People can only give you what they have. What I'm sharing with you now is based on what I know. I can promise you something. In 15 years, if I'm still alive, I will know much more than I know now, because I intend to keep studying. And in 15 years, I'll probably be able to give you something much better than what I can give you now. So people can only give you what they have. And what you must see your life as is see yourself as a gatherer and seek for knowledge. But don't just be the kind of person who just keeps studying. You must be doers. Don't just be hearers of the word. Be doers as well, meaning take the information you learn and apply it. You learn in life by experience. But you don't have to let the experience be yours alone. Through the concept of OPE, other people's experiences, you can reduce the amount of time, the amount of pain, the amount of setbacks that you may have experienced through the trial and error approach. Learning from other people's experiences serve as detours that get you to your destination much quicker.